Welcome to the Scared So What podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Grant Van Ulbrich. This is the show where we break through the fear of change and ask the question, scared? So what? Each week we dive into personal change management, coaching, and leadership for the future, giving you real-world tools, insights, and stories to help you lead yourself and others through transformation. Whether you're navigating change in your life, your career, or your organization, this is your space to learn, to grow, and to take bold action. So, are you ready? Let's move from fear to forward. Hello, and welcome to today's episode. This is episode 7, Leadership, Coaching, and Change in Hospitality. Today we're joined with Mr. Stuart Leven. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Hotels Division of Orascom Development, an integrated town developer with hotels in Switzerland, Montenegro, Egypt, Oman and RAK, and the United Arab Emirates. Responsible for 35 hotels with over 4,500 team members, he is leading the transformation of the Orascom hospitality business. Stuart has enjoyed a long career span in airline, hotels, and cruise sectors. I'm pleased to welcome today's guest, Mr. Stuart Leven. Hi, Stuart. How are you today?
I'm very good, Grant. How are you? It's great to catch up again.
Oh, I'm fine, thank you. And it's great to see you. We've actually been friends for quite a long time because you were one of my first supervisors here over in Europe in the cruise industry. So it's great to be with you.
It is, and it's great to see you doing so well and seeing Scared So What doing so well as well.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I couldn't have done it without you as well. You've had a long-standing journey in my journey as well, too. But today's episode is all about you. And so I'm just going to ask you, could you tell us a little bit about you and your exciting career in your own words?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a serial leisure hospitality travel guy. I started straight from school into a traineeship within a travel agency. Worked my way through tour operations into airlines, where I worked for the KLM group for 10 years and probably did my growing up at that time, always on the commercial side. And then from that, I moved into hotels and done some consulting along the way. The big chunk of time where you and I first met at Royal Caribbean Group. First of all, running their UK business and then Europe, Middle East and Africa. And then latterly, I've been chief executive of a beautiful company called Orascom Development, which develops integrated towns. And a big part of the placemaking, the heart of the towns, is the hotel businesses and hospitality businesses, which I'm fortunate enough to lead now as chief exec across many countries and many cultures. And the learning for me goes on as a result of that.
I can only imagine. And you know what? I do know your leadership style. So at least I've got a little insight into you. But for our listeners today, you know, you've done so much and across so much of the hospitality industry. Can you tell me and our listeners just a little bit about your leadership style and what do you believe to be important for you and your teams?
Yeah, it's interesting, Grant, because, you know, to a certain extent, it's situational. What are you trying to develop at the time? I mean, if you look at the traditional styles, I would say I'm a healthy or maybe unhealthy blend. It depends how you look at it, of transformational, situational, and coaching. They would be the three that I would say comes in. There's a healthy dose of strategic in there because you work that out before you do the transform, obviously. But no, I mean, if you look back over my career, I've constantly been involved in change, transformation, looking for different outcomes, often in quite complex organizations, and complex not just in size and scale, but also complex in terms of cultural alignment across the organizations. So, you know, you learn some things as you go along the journey, often from things you didn't quite get right, or from people that you look at and think, I wish I could have a bit more of that, which I've been very fortunate to have a lot of within my career. But I think my style, how would I describe it in my words? You need a clear set of objectives that you're going against, and you need to make sure everyone buys into it. You need to give freedom for people to express, freedom for people to deliver, people for freedom to bring their subject matter expertise to the table.
Yeah.
Without being too overbearing. I've often worked in operational roles. The role I have just now is a big operational role. So you need to also recognize that whilst we're all focusing on big transformational goals, there is a business to run, which can be very situational. And in doing that, you need to recognize that, allowing people also the time to do what they have to do. Yeah. is important. And then in terms of coaching style, I mean, you and I have talked about this often. I'm a very much I think you should have a contract between supervisor, as you call them, leader within business, and your leadership team, and then their teams, where you maybe touch base once a year and agree what's important for them to develop as individuals, for them to develop their skill and expertise and contribution, but also for them to develop their happiness, what's important to them, maybe within the workplace or out with the workplace. But then it's critical. I'm not a big fan of quarterly check-ins. You know this with me. I'm not a big fan of sitting down with a personal development plan and ticking the boxes to see whether they've done it. I'm a big fan of coaching in the moment. Coaching in the moment. Show personal interest. Talk to your teams, hear what's going on in their life, see how they're developing, and creating that relationship, creating that safe space that it's okay to coach in the moment, and it's okay to listen to what's going on in their lives and see how you can steer and direct, but also give them the freedom to go where they need to go. Yeah.
Well, and it's amazing. And that's exactly why when I started this podcast show, Stuart, you were one of the first people I thought about, because, again, I've had the joy and the benefit of having you as my supervisor for quite a nice period of time. And in all of my history, I've never found, and I don't want you to turn red or anything, but I've never found anybody with a leadership approach and style as much as you that is so empowering for people. And you've just unpacked that as well, too, in your leadership style. There's a sense of being vulnerable a little bit. And I've done this from the research side of it to look at transformational leadership, transactional leadership. Transactional is a system and a foundation of tell. And yes, we all have to do that from a moment in time. But some of the best leaders, they know enough not to live there, right? They shift over to the transformational style, which is, it has to be about the people. And I love, because you're one of the best examples that's done that. And you're so right. Anytime I talk with people about you can coach in the moment, yours is the first name that comes to mind. But where did you get that from? Did you learn that, or was it something that was taught to you?
I haven't always had it, if I'm being honest. In actual fact, earlier in my career, I was very quick to come forward with the answer before fully understanding the question. I was in a hurry. I've oodles of self-confidence. I had a quick brain, so I thought it was quick. I find myself in a situation early in my career. I think I was more transactional earlier in my career, and I've actually developed away from that. I think the best skill, it's so cliched, it really is so cliched, but it's also so true. The best skill you can learn is just the ability to sit and listen, but allow the time to do it as well. People run so fast. We all run so fast. The demands are in all of us, in the world we're living in today, are constant. But I had one boss. I'll name and shame him because he's actually still involved in business. It's a guy called Will Morris. Will is currently the chief exec of Cafe Nero. But he was my boss maybe 15, 20 years ago. Will was always busy. He ran at 1,000 miles an hour. He lived between France, lived between the UK. He was all over the place, running a really complex business. Until it came to talking about personal development and coaching his team. And he gave what we all believed was a really generous proportion of his time, not just when he was in the moment, but also with the research he did for the meetings that he had. And he also had this instinct of just understanding people. He instinctively understood personality type. You say probably research, but he instinctively understood that, and just also understood, because he was so busy, he had no option but to empower, and saw the value in that and the strength in that. And I was very fortunate that probably changed my approach. In fact, not probably. It did change my approach to be more reflective and go into listening mode more, and you know, the difference between mentoring and coaching is well documented. But if you can steer someone to find the right answer, it's far better than giving it to them. And I think that's the you know, and that is the key, you know, and you have to focus on that. You have to focus on the individual, and you have to give the time to do it. But then not make it a one-off event like an annual review or a touch point. You know, be there, be there, be conscious. But even jumping back before that, what you have to do is create permission, create the contract with the individual where I naturally give trust. You and I have had this discussion before. If I meet someone, I naturally trust them until they prove to me they're not worthy of that trust. Yeah. You get lots of people who do not naturally trust, they naturally distrust. So you have to recognize that, and then you need to make sure that you can get them to a place that their windows are open enough, they can see enough of you that the trust can begin to build. And then if you're consistent over time, you can really create some really strong relationships. So for some people it can be instant, for other people it can really take time, but you just need to have your eyes open and look at life through the lens of the person you're talking to and see what they are thinking in order to help them on that journey.
I love that. Have your eyes open and look through the lens of the person. And you know what? That just spells everything to support a transformational leadership approach and style. But I also do remember, you know, on coaching, and I loved hearing from you that it's something you learned from someone else, which really shows that the value of your leadership style and how you can make a mark on people. You know, and that's our responsibility as leaders throughout our lives and throughout industry. We have a choice we can make. We can either make it all about us, and people probably won't follow us, or we can decide to do as you've done and actually make it more about the people and create a life journey for them as well as for yourself. And I remember in coaching, I used to come to you several times with big projects we were doing. And a lot of times, I have to admit, I just wanted you to be aware of what I was doing, right? And am I on the right track? Can I check in with you to see it? And you could have very easily said at that moment, go do it. But what you would do is you would go right into coaching in the moment. You said it earlier. You can do it anywhere, right? And you did that often. So, you know, what would you do? Well, what do you think will happen if you do that? Just quick questions to turn it right back around. And that is the transfer of ownership. And I loved that about you. So well done. Well done. And thanks for sharing that.
You're forgetting about the whiteboard in your office in Barcelona as well, Grant. I mean, there was many a problem and coaching situation worked out on that over the years, yeah.
That's so true. That's so true. Absolutely. Well, let's talk about that. With all of this within your leadership experience, you know, leadership style is important, how you develop others, your empathy, your ability to be a little bit vulnerable at times, and definitely coaching. But as you said with this earlier, change. Change is an extensive part of being a leader and throughout organizations, and it's part of transformation, what you're doing right now. So when it comes to guiding you and your organization through change, how do you manage it for each of your people?
Yeah, it's the question you asked there is the right question, because it's how do you manage it for each of your people. It's not how you take a one-size-fits-all approach and take it forward, because as you know, you've a doctorate in this thing. You know, it's change is personal. It's not a project that everyone just aligns with. And quite interesting, in the organisation I'm in, a lot of our teams are from different cultures. So I have Swiss team members, German team members, I have Egyptian team members, I have Omani team members. And one of the things you have to recognise is the nuance of culture. To a certain extent, but then you also have to recognize when you come to change projects or the change process, that there is no one size fits all, and there are teams, there are cultures, there are individuals that will move at different speeds through the process. Yeah. How I approach it though is, if we're going into a change project, I like to set the guidelines at the start.
Okay.
Right. So there's the old consultant's triangle of speed, quality, and resource. You never get all three. Yeah. And a change project's the same. You can only go as fast as the capability of the resource that you have. and you can only go as fast as the resource and the expenditure that you can make. And the one thing you don't compromise on is quality. Yeah.
True.
So if you're going for quality, you're either going to have to resource for it, or you're going to lose some of the speed in what you're doing. So the first thing is, do not try and hit ambitious deadlines that you know that you may finish the project, but you could end up in a situation with operation successful, patient dead, because you've delivered the project. You've delivered the project, you said, but the team haven't come with you. Yeah,
exactly. That's so true.
So they're not there. And most
operation
change projects,
successful, patient dead. That I've never heard that, but that's amazing.
Yeah, and most of the most change projects generally fall down when you come to the system process adoption side of it. Yeah, that's a bit, and that's where the personal piece comes in. So I think from a quality perspective, we start off with the simple phrase of flawless execution, right? We have to execute this flawlessly. So now let's look at the lens of that. How do we execute for the teams? How do we execute for the stakeholders? How do we execute for the customers? How do we go ahead and do that? And there are some things that you need to do. Never ever underestimate the value of good program management. Never underestimate it. People who are subject matter expertise generally don't have the skills to be program managers. So you have to put that into the mix. Never underestimate the value of communication. And communication isn't tell. Communication is standing up in front of a group of people and saying, here's our plan. How are you feeling about that today, each individually, and giving everyone a chance to tell you and giving everyone the chance to communicate back to you? Yeah, you can't just do, I'll tell you what, project team, here's a great idea. Let's do a newsletter once a month and tell everyone what's happening to their lives. Yeah, that just doesn't happen. It has to be constant. You need to be in the town halls. You need to be sitting down with small groups. You have to go through that. One of the things we learned very early on in one of the projects we're working in this business across different cultures and across different geographies was we actually created a role which was change enablers, where we took people from all different levels of the organization and brought them in and trained them how to manage change. And then their role was to be the person who maybe wouldn't come to the project team and say, I think you've got a problem, but they would go to one of their peers. And they then became the person that could enable that to bring back up to project team. We suggest you do this, or the team are feeling sore about this, and how do you bring that through? So it's the whole structure of set expectations up front, make sure everyone understands the definition of flawless execution, take the time to make sure the stakeholders are all going on the journey with you, but that's not just at the start, all the way through the journey. Make sure that there is engagement, make sure that you're taking them, make sure they also have a safe space they can go to feedback if they don't feel it's going correct. And through all that, and the final piece from what learning I've certainly had through this role is understand the cultural challenges that you may face, also the cultural opportunities. Some cultures are much faster at change. Some of the cultures I work with are amazing at organizing, very rules based. Other cultures are very agile, they can move very fast, and it's a case of working out the right mix that you can have within project in order to deliver success. But you have to recognize a formula, a standardized approach, a regimented approach does not deliver change.
Yeah.
It can deliver to a project plan, but it's not going to give you something that's going to live and breathe and last in the business, or something that's going to make your team members comfortable in the environment they're working in.
Yeah, well, that's so interesting. And thank you. That is just so refreshing. I can tell you in 8 years of my research doing this, I have never had a leader at your level actually start off the sentence was, you have to make sure how your team feels.
Yeah.
And it's processing your feelings, right? Typical change management is like project management. We have a deadline, we have a task to do, let's push it through the organization. And we wonder why so much organizational change around the world falls apart. And it's because we don't include the very people that we need to execute the change. But here's living proof, ladies and gentlemen, as I listen on this show, there is one, there is hope. Stuart Leven, so a great organization to work with at Orascom. So if you're ever looking for a new employment or new opportunity, definitely look him up. Stuart, I love what you said about the people. Everything that you've described is exactly what we are striving for within personal change management. At work. It's making change work at work. And you've articulated very well the key element is the feeling side of change. You have to understand and help the people to be able to express their voice and concern. But as a CEO, How do you manage change for yourself?
Um, it's. I think the further up an organization you go, you actually develop. I certainly developed thicker skin.
Mm.
I think that's the first thing. The further up the organization you go, it becomes more transactional
Yeah.
in how you operate, and that's okay. That's okay, because you actually have the capability then to move from the emotion and actually see what's actually driving this, what's driving this, and you have to have that capability, I think, to thrive if you're in a senior leadership role. As long as you don't forget the fact that whilst you're operating at a level where your peers are all operating in that way,
Yeah.
your teams and your teams don't necessarily have that capability. So you really have to then over-index as you go into your organization, or understand what's going on in other departments within the business who you maybe don't have direct control over, but you have to influence and rely on for delivery. So you have to you have to understand that side. Change for me is a challenge. It's a challenge,
Okay.
and it's a challenge I really enjoy. I have to be honest with you. You know, I love watching projects go from ideation through stakeholder engagement and sign off, to plan build, to implementation, to agility through implementation, to potentially changing destination as you learn more as you go through it, right to the end where you actually see the KPIs coming in and you can see I've left some legacy within the business, and then you can move on to the next change project. So I enjoy that. And I also enjoy the complexity of maybe having 3 or 4 of them running at the same time. That's you know, strangely is one of the things that gets me out of bed. And you know, in the morning is actually having that and the ability to see that through that whole process. So I think it's quite interesting. I'm taking a side note. I ski, and I'm dreadful at it. Not as bad as you, by the way. But I'm dreadful at it. Yeah, you can tell your listeners that story another time. But I'm not very good at it. My children call me Captain Slow. I started late in life and enjoy it. But I can either get to the top of a slope and look down and think, oh, I'm going to be really hesitant and take this turn at a time, and I'm going to worry about it and I'm not going to enjoy it that much. Or I can get to the top of the slope and look down and think, I'm on a mountain. This is beautiful. There's snow everywhere, right? Yeah. I'm going to put a smile on my face and I'm going to go. And if I go down on my backside, I'll get down on my backside, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to do it with enjoyment, you know.
You're going to get down somehow.
It's also bringing that positivity into it as well. And because change comes with hurdles, it comes with barriers, it comes with, you know, it's the old phrase, the change saboteurs. I don't like that phrase, but certainly people who are resistant to change, who will stand in the way of it, you know. Yeah. It's why my favorite book is Who Moved My Cheese. I think it's the most amazing book that's ever been written. But I think through that, if you can stay positive and keep your eye on the goal at the end, and recognize as the leader of the change, your job is to help people get there. That's what I enjoy. I enjoy that piece. Yeah.
Brilliant. I love that. So, and yes, we'll talk about my journeys at another episode. But you are far braver than I, and more successful when it comes to skiing. So, well, Stuart, what would you say the importance of personal change coaching is to you and your members as a part of your leadership that you want to leave at Orascom?
Do you know, it's quite interesting. It's not just Orascom. It's everywhere I've been. I think your only legacy within any company really is the people, the teams that you've worked with, the teams that you've helped develop, the teams that you've coached, any mentoring you do. I think that's the important legacy. You know, I love the Branson quote, you know, develop your team so they're good enough to leave, treat them well so they choose not to. Yeah, I think that's an amazing quotation, apart from the fact that sometimes you want to develop them so they're good that they do leave because they can go and thrive elsewhere. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's very rare.
Yeah, your team members, and recognize that's your job done. And you know, when you go forward. So for me, it's about if legacy can be that you have changed the approach to change, you've changed the approach to change management, and you've changed the approach and enhanced the approach to how you lead and develop teams. then that's good enough for me. Because if you do that, then the business results will improve, the profit delivery will improve, the stakeholder engagement will improve, the asset values will improve, everything improves as a result of that. But I remember early in hospitality, one of the chief operating officers that I worked with actually turned around to me and said, the only unique selling proposition we have is our teams and their personalities, and we need to encourage them. And he had this beautiful phrase, we need to encourage them not to leave their personality at the back door when they come to work.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was amazing. It really was. Doesn't matter whether in blue uniform, red uniform, green uniform, let them bring their personality to work, because that's the thing that makes a difference. And I think if you can do that and you can allow that to happen within the workplace, the business results will come through over time. And fundamentally, when I talk about operation successful, patient dead, the thing that keeps the patient alive is the bottom right hand corner of the P&L and the balance sheet growing in value. I mean, that's the one bit we haven't talked about yet, but you need to make sure that flows through. Yeah.
So true. So true. Well, Stuart, listen, thank you for sharing so much. We've got time for just one last question. And I ask this of everybody. What is one thing of advice that you'd like to give out to people about change, coaching, leadership, or just life?
Let me give two, if I may. One for those who lead people and coach and develop people, which is create the environment where people can take ownership of their own development.
Yeah, so true.
And then for those who are looking to grow their careers and understand their full capability and recognize their full capability, take control of your own personal development.
Love that. Spot on. Exactly.
Take control. Your PDP is not a plan that your boss, like a number of times I've been in a situation, what do you think I should focus on this year? Well, it's your career, it's your development. What do you think you should focus on this year? You know, and you push back and and develop. And I think it's really important that we all take personal responsibility, accountability for our own personal development. We have to do the due diligence around what's good for us. We need to understand the best place if we want to develop our careers. Not everyone wants to, but if we want to develop our careers, where we want to go to, the impact, what I do. I don't like work-life balance, as you know, because work is such a big part of your life, but the impact that work, home, hobby, career, family, all these things have when they all come together, and how you can develop that. You have to take ownership of that. You can't let that happen to you. You have to own what happens. So leaders, give your team the space. That's the old adage. It's impossible to motivate an individual. All you can do is create the environment for them to motivate themselves. And then for the individuals who are dealing with change, dealing with their careers, whatever, take ownership, own it, absolutely own it. And give your leader the opportunity to coach, mentor, develop you, because you know where you're going. Yeah, that would be my advice.
I love that. That's wonderful. Well, it's been wonderful having you on the show today. Such great words of wisdom and your experiences over the years. I thank you for joining me. And to all of our listeners, if you'd like to learn more about Stuart and his work, you can go to LinkedIn and connect with him there. I'm sure he's willing to grow his network as well, too. So follow along. Stuart, thanks for being on the show with me today. It's a joy, and I hope to see you again soon.
Grant, thank you very much. Love chatting to you all the time, and I'm delighted to be part of your community and the great journey that you're going on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Until next time, we'll talk again. Thanks for joining us here on the Scared So What podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Grant Van Ulbrich. If you found any of this information insightful, well, give us a like and follow along. Make sure that you tune in each week for more episodes as we talk further about what is personal change, how do you manage it with Scared So what about coaching, and also leadership, and how all three of these tie together. If you'd like to learn more, then go to our website at www.scaredsowhat.com. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope that you come back soon.